All right, how are you guys doing?
Good.
All right. Okay. All right. So today we're going to be covering MVC, model view controller. Okay. So actually, before I get started on this, I want to say that I did read your survey results. They came in this morning. I had a chance to look them over. So I think the general consensus I've been getting from it is that a lot of you guys have been unclear on some of the different concepts, and also that you would want more instructional support for some of those things. So I started doing that yesterday already. Actually, I was starting to go around, talk to people individually, find out where people are at, find out where people are struggling with different concepts. And so I just want to let you know that I will be continuing to do that. And I will try to get the people who are behind with things that they're not understanding. I'll try to find out what those gaps are, and hopefully that will help, remedy some of that. Okay, so in the meantime, just try to help me out as well, right? It's hard for me to keep track of everyone and do one-on-ones with everyone. So please, definitely come talk to me if you have problems. But I'll also be trying to step in and try to talk to you guys as much as I can in terms of figuring out what those gaps in knowledge are. All right. So on to MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller. The way I'm going to structure this lecture is I'm going to first cover the theory of Model View Controller in general, and then I'm going to talk about how it applies specifically to Django and how it will actually show up a little bit differently. Okay, so I'll start with that. Okay, so in general, Model View Controller is a way of organizing your code. So similar to OOP, it's also a way of organizing your code. But Model View Controller is more like a higher level of sort of where all of your code goes. Okay, so the general premise is that you have a model section, you have a view section, and you have a controller. Okay. So right now, the way you guys have been doing your code, right? Most of your code has gone into your HTML file, which is like your view file, okay? And then the other half of your code has been going into a server.py, okay? So your server.py has been handling doing your SQL queries. It's been handling doing passing all the data to your view, and basically handling all of the logic, okay? So we're basically taking that server.py file and taking all the logic that's in there, and we're breaking it up into two sections. We're breaking it up into the model, and we're breaking it up into the controller. Okay, so then now we have three sections. Your HTML is still mostly going to be in your views. Okay, that part doesn't change very much. Okay. So this view part, this is what you consider your display layer. Okay, and so this is your HTML. And as I said before, this doesn't change too much. Your HTML, your templates. This takes care of basically, what content you want to display in the browser in terms of how you want to present things, how you want to organize that content and stuff. Okay. The model layer, this basically takes care of all of your SQL queries and all of your data, and any sort of like data crunching. So you can call this like your data layer. Whereas this is like your display layer. Okay? And the controller is basically your middle. Okay, so it takes care of basically routing that information. And when I say routing that information, it's basically deciding what information to request from the model and what information to pass off to the view. Okay, so even though I'm using the word routing, it's a little different from like your routes. Okay, right? It's routing information, but it's not your routes. Okay, so the connection is from here to here, and here to here. Okay, so what generally happens is right now you have in Flask, right? You have. Don't want to get to this yet. Hold on. I'll get to this a little bit later. Okay. Yeah. So right now you have your route comes in, right? It sees like what path you're going to. Like, let's say like /homepage on your local host. Okay. Right. This is normally designated by your @ampersand route, right? And then it passes off to like a specific method. Okay. We're still going to have this, right? This is going to basically point to something in the controller, and then the controller will take care of getting the appropriate information from the model and passing the appropriate information to the view. Okay? So the main reason we want to do this and break it up into sections is, one, it kind of makes, it does kind of make things a little bit more complicated because now you have to worry about passing information around a lot more. But what it also does is that it means that each section takes care of like a certain responsibility, and it keeps our code a little bit more organized. So as your application grows bigger, having everything in one server.py file, right, becomes very difficult to manage, okay? Because we have, this piece there, this piece there, this piece there, right? Breaking it up like this, you start to go, when you go from one application to another, and also when you go back to an old project you're working on, you'll know where stuff is, and it helps you to just keep those things aggregated together. Okay, so even though it's a little bit more complicated initially, which is why we teach you Flask, because it's like a simpler version, it's for you guys to understand the concepts. Having an MVC architecture, which Django is, allows us to scale the application more when the logic becomes more complicated, and you need to manage a lot more different pieces. Okay, so that's the main reason we do this. All right, so we are starting Django. All right, so here's Django. Okay, so Django is the new framework we're starting, right? So like Flask, it's also a framework, but it's unlike Flask. It's a framework that uses this MVC paradigm. Okay, now Django, while it uses MVC, the nomenclature it uses is a little different from normal MVC. Okay, it actually kind of uses this nomenclature called MTV. Okay, this stands for Model, Template, and View. Okay, so this is Django. Then I'm going to say this is traditional MVC. Okay. So in traditional MVC, the model is still the model, but here the template, this is actually the view. Okay, so we're using a templates folder and template files for the view, and then they actually call this view.py file. This is actually technically the controller. Okay, so it's a little strange. Okay, so but know that this is the traditional way that we explain MVC. Okay, and this is what they use in Rails as well. But in Django, they've decided to just organize and name things a little bit differently. And so the template is actually the view, and the view.py is actually the corollary of the controller. Okay? Just be aware of that. All right. Also, okay, so in Flask, right, we had this, when you build your application, your server.py, right, you have an app route. And then you have this path, right? And then you may also have like a defined index. And then you may you may have some code, and then you may render a template of index.html. Okay. So if this is what happens in Flask, in Django, what's happened is, do you have another marker back there? That's another color? No? Alright, I'll just do this. Okay, so this has moved to a urls.py file. Okay, so all of your routes are going to get aggregated together in our urls.py file. And then also this portion, right, this has all gets moved to the quote-unquote controller, which is the view.py file. Okay? If you had model code as well, like your SQL stuff, that would be moving to some other models files. Okay, we'll cover that in more detail when we get to Django with data. Okay, so that's like Django 2. Right now we're just doing Django where you're only worried about basically the view and the controller layer. Okay, and we'll just like we did Flask without MySQL first. Now we're going to do Django set up without the data layer, and then later we'll do it with the data layer. Okay, so that's how things are going to be set up. I'm also going to show you guys something. Okay.